Now, the staging table becomes a little bit more complex than the landing object. And in the staging table definition, we could configure it to have the raw table. I'll discuss reject in a moment because that's a little, I have more to say on that. But in the raw, if you want to keep track of history of what's being staged, you can enable raw. It's good for auditing, for preserving history, if you want that. The problem with that is every time we sort of have any kind of auditing going on, we're going to have performance because we're using more space, more tables, more disk space. So remember, raw is good, but use it wisely because you are going to impact to somewhat performance. Now, PRL, previously landing. This table is important only if you have configured delta detection on the staging table. So if you're using delta detection, then the PRL takes effect. And what does this mean? Delta detection means that you want to have the ability to distinguish new data from previously staged data. So if yesterday we staged 10 records and today we have 20 records, if we have enabled delta detection, we only want the new 20 records, not the previously 10 records. Well, those records will be in the PRL. So PRL, again, consumes more resources, but it's great when you need delta detection. And let me go now to the reject. Why did I save this for last? Because it's a little bit confusing. Every phase, the landing, the staging, the load, the match, the merge, all those phases we have been talking about have a configuration phase and an execution phase. Configuration where you configure it. Execution means when we are running it and moving the data from one stage to another, one phase to another. That's the execution. Well, in the staging, we configure raw, we can configure PRL for delta detection, but when we execute this, then records that are rejected will go to the reject table. So if my staging table is called STG customer, I'm going to have one called STG customer REJ for the reject. Now, this table contains records that were rejected during the execution of the staging. But also, this same table is used for when we execute the load process. Remember the load? We haven't really discussed it yet, but we always configure it and execute. So when we execute the load, it's also going to use the same table than the staging. So be careful. Some people get this confused. If you're ever looking at the rejected data, it could have come from the staging execution phase or from the loading execution phase.